As part of the immersion into the video games I like to play, I like to explore and blur the lines between fiction and reality, and talk about the what-ifs. So in this series I'd like to talk about the SHD tech, and come to the conclusion of whether I think these skills are feasible in the real world, or a completely fictional idea added to the game. In this video we'll be exploring the likelihood of combat drones, but also turrets, because these are essentially the same thing, with one really only being a more mobile version of the other. So let's get into it. One of the most important tools for any division agent is access to the Intelligent System Analytic Computer, or ISAC. This system automatically tracks and records every division agent's movement and actions over time. ISAC is a highly advanced artificial intelligence entity available to all active division agents equipped with an SHD tech transceiver. One of the SHD's most important functions is to provide division agents with timely identification of units during field encounters. Linked via smartwatch to the agent's ScanTech contact lenses, ISAC draws from the network databases to generate a nearly flawless color-coded friend or foe recognition system. This system displays the affiliation and the current status of the units directly onto the agent's HUD. This links numerous dedicated assets directly controlled by the division, like drones and other unmanned combat equipment. Using ISAC, drones and turrets are able to operate autonomously, targeting hostiles and protecting the agents. Drones have been around since the 90s, where they were used by the US military for surveillance. It wasn't until after the events of 9/11 where the first weaponized drones were deployed in the Middle East. Predator and Reaper drones have since been developed by the US and have been used in thousands of operations in Afghanistan, northern Pakistan, Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, and Syria. As the technology advances and the cost to produce continues to drop, even countries with smaller military budgets have been able to develop in this area. It has been estimated that 80,000 surveillance drones and almost 2,000 attack drones will be purchased around the world in the next 10 years. However, all of these military drones are controlled by human operators who decide when and who the drone will fire upon. So what is the likelihood of humans being removed from the loop, where AI-powered drones will select and lock onto targets with no human oversight? Lethal autonomous weapons don't exist yet, but the technology to replace the human with an algorithm that makes the decision of when to shoot does. Experts in machine learning and military technology say it would be technologically straightforward to build robots to make decisions about whom to target and kill without a human in the loop. And as facial recognition and decision-making algorithms become more powerful, it will only get easier. According to lead AI researchers, autonomous weapons are technically easier than self-driving cars. They go on to say that the technology and design required would be relatively easy to put together in less than a couple of years. The algorithm could have a fixed list of people it can target and fire, only if it's highly confident that it has identified one of these targets. Or it could be trained from combat footage to predict whether a human would tell it to fire. Or it could be taught to fire on anyone in a war zone holding something visually identifiable as a gun and not wearing the uniform of friendly forces. These technologies are being prototyped as we speak. In the past few years, the state of AI has taken huge steps forward. Facial recognition has gotten vastly more accurate, as has object recognition, two skills that are essential for lethal autonomous weapons. New techniques have enabled AI systems to do things that would have been impossible just a few years ago. In fact, the US Army is already developing a swarm of autonomous AI drones to protect combat helicopters. The swarm is modeled after social swarming insects like bees and ants who protect their queen. A drone nest protects the queen helicopter at all costs. The protective swarm's tasks will range from sophisticated electronic warfare to acting as decoys for incoming missiles, and they'll carry out these tasks autonomously. So if the technology already exists, why isn't there weaponized autonomous drones being used? Over time, nations have come together to prohibit particularly gruesome or terrifying weapons. By the mid-20th century, international conventions had banned biological and chemical weapons, along with the use of blinding laser technology. In more recent years, the United Nations decided to formally address the issue of killer robots. Elon Musk has been particularly vocal on the subject, warning that artificial intelligence is our biggest existential threat and potentially more dangerous than nukes. Stephen Hawking said in 2014 that the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. At the International Convention on Conventional Weapons in Geneva, the 123 participating nations voted to form a group in 2017 of governmental experts to look at the lethal autonomous robots that can select targets without human control, which could lead to a ban. The fear is that this technology would make it easier for countries to embark on wars and undeclared shadow wars, putting non-combatants at greater risk. Basically, the risk would be transferred from the combatants to the civilians. A key ethical principle of warfare has been one of discrimination, requiring attackers to distinguish between combatants and civilians. But guerrilla or insurgent warfare has become increasingly common in the recent decades, and combatants in such situations rarely wear uniforms, making it harder to distinguish them from civilians. Given the difficulties that human soldiers face in this regard, it's easy to see the even greater risk posed by robotic weapon systems. In theory, a preference for controlled machine violence rather than unpredictable human violence might seem reasonable. Massacres taking place during war often seem to be rooted in irrational emotion. The history of warfare offers many examples of more carefully planned massacres, and surely any robotics weapon system is likely to be designed with some sort of override feature which will be controlled by human operators, subject to all of the human passions and irrationality. At this stage, it's impossible to program a robot with reactions to the infinite array of situations that could arise in the heat of conflict. At a time where we are constantly speculating over the future of humanity's position as the dominant force on the planet due to the developments in robotics and artificial technology, it isn't surprising that there are concerns around giving a robot the power to take a life. Yet at the same time, we're still building and developing towards such a future. What was speculation only a few years ago is now a reality due to rapid advancements in technology, which doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. So getting back to the question at hand, are the turrets and drones used in the Division reality or completely fictional? From a component, weapon, technology, and even an artificial intelligence perspective, yes, the concept is completely feasible in today's world. But from a societal and ethical point of view, we're unlikely to see these autonomous human-killing machines becoming commonplace in the world. Depending on how this group of governmental experts define lethal autonomous robots, we're likely to see them continue to develop in directions of more of a support role where they wouldn't be the ones making the decision on whether to open fire or not. But like we've seen time and time again, there will likely be some grey areas in this definition where the military equipment manufacturers are willing to push the line. Plus, let's face it wouldn't be the first time that a secret, shadowy organisation deemed to be above the law has gone out of their way to produce technology and weaponry that would otherwise be frowned upon or illegal in other sectors. I've been thinking about discussing this for a year or two now, but I wasn't sure if this was what people wanted to watch. Truth be told, I have a bunch of scripts that are put together over the years, but never recorded and made them into videos, because although I was intrigued enough to research and write about them, I wasn't sure if anyone else was. Obviously there are certain things I didn't address, like the fact that some of this tech seems to have an unlimited stockpile of ammo, for example, but some things will really just come down to game mechanics and quality of life for the player. If you'd like to see more of these types of videos where I speculate and attempt to tighten the gap between the game universe and real life, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!